And I'm so delighted to be here and have the opportunity to share a topic that is very, very, very special to me, and it's having a heart for each other. And in the spirit of unity, I just feel like it is so on point to be able to talk about creating a healthy work environment. And research says, is it working? Okay, trying to get it to work. I'll advance it this way. I'm very animated. I actually like to walk around doing a presentation, but research says that if I show a picture of my family, you'll be likely to listen to me, have grace, understand that I'm human, and that I have flaws just like other people. Research also says that the heart, weighing about 10 ounces, can actually mimic a heart attack when it's under stress. And I don't know about you, but I feel that as nurses, we can cause a great deal of stress towards each other. Does anyone agree with me? Okay. I am hoping that from this presentation, for those of you who are leaders, and which I feel you all are, even if you have not been formally given a title as a leader, you are still a leader in some form or aspect in your life. You'll be able to identify healthy behaviors that's been represented in the nursing community, apply appropriate information from this presentation, just to abstract some practical skills to create a cohesive and work environment, and also demonstrate care for patients and the multidisciplinary team, as stated in the American Nurses Association ANA Code of Ethics. But I have to warn you, it may sting. I may say some things that may have you really look within, because that's really where we should start with first, looking within, and it stings because it's a part of growing pains, and that's okay, correct? Okay. So this is really just a heart check and reinforcement of some information that you already know, because we're all experts on the topic of having a heart for each other. But it still bothers me that we're the heartbeat of the health profession, and we're trained to care for each other, to care for patients, yet some of us lack in caring for each other. And as I was preparing for this presentation, I couldn't help but to reflect. I had to think back about when I first experienced an encounter with incivility or low work morale. And I'm like, okay, when did I first experience that? And I was thinking back, and eventually I will share a story of when I first became a nurse, but then I said, wait a minute, nursing school. It really started for me in nursing school. Did anyone experience anything like that in nursing school? Okay, I think we all have. So one of the things that I have up there, what goes on in the stall, stays in the stall. We're familiar with the term, what goes on in Vegas, stays in Vegas. And of course, I put a big scratch through the stays in the stall because it doesn't. So it was during is it okay if I share a story with you? Thank you. It was during my last semester of my baccalaureate program, and I was 5 months pregnant during that time, and we had orientation. You know, typically you have a break, and when you're pregnant, for those who've had that opportunity, you kind of go to the bathroom quite often. So I went in there thinking it would be the regular bathroom experience that we all have, but it seems that there were a couple of nursing students that were distracted with my pregnancy, and I can't remember the exact words that they said in the stall, but I do remember how it made me feel. And it sounded a little something like this: I cannot believe that this person is here pregnant. I would never get pregnant in nursing school. And so this is the time where I promise you, it was like the theme music of Shaft came on. I flushed the toilet, of course, that's common. and opened the stall and stepped out, and it was a Kodak moment of their faces. I mean, you should have seen it. I'm like, oh my gosh. And actually, back then, we didn't have memes, but we could have made a meme now if we saw their faces. And of course, because it was 10 years ago, I wasn't as tactful as I am now. And then I was hormonal. So really what happened is I said, look, this is my second degree, and my husband and I have the right to start our family at this time. And of course, they were lost for words, because really, what do you have to say when you think the bathroom is a private place and the person you talk about heard what you said? Like, now I can laugh about it. Then I could not. But it also makes me think, how many of us have had conversations about our colleagues when we thought it was in a private setting? Anyone guilty? We're all guilty. I'm going to tell you I'm guilty. I probably just did it like earlier this year, because it's something that being civil and demonstrating healthy behaviors in nursing is really something, it's a skill that we have to develop. So the next thing I started thinking about was, wow, okay, fresh eyes, which is nursing students and new graduates. And I said, wait a minute, okay, so we compete to get in nursing school, all right? And then we get into school, and then we compete to be the best in school and stand out and shine. And then we graduate, and then we compete again to be the best and shine on the floor. And oftentimes we take credit for other people's ideas. We do things that involve bullying and intimidation. And I was just really thinking about how it starts. Shepard had mentioned that schools of nursing are dealing with the challenge of incivility between nursing staff and nursing students. Okay, 3 months ago, if I saw this, I'd have been like, mm-mm. But this is my first semester as an instructor for a nursing program, and literally day one I experienced that. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, whoa, she is right. I guess that's why she was able to publish an article. And then I thought a little bit more. I said, wait a minute. I too, just like Embry, did not realize how much it was a team effort until I eventually worked at a place, and I'll talk about it later, where they actually embraced positive reinforcement and acknowledging your peers if they do something great that helps the team. So I just wanted to share that with you. In addition to that, I feel that as leaders, it's very important that we address the myths as far as the nursing profession or the dysfunctions. I was trying to say it a little bit diplomatic, but we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to acknowledge at first that there is an issue, because if there wasn't, ANA wouldn't have released a statement in 2014, and many of you are familiar with that. So myth or fact? All nurses are professional because they went to school. Myth, yes. But I'm telling you, people think that though? How many people think, well, I would have expected better because she's a nurse. I would have expected better because he's a nurse, okay? But there's this big misconception just generally that people who go to college and obtain a degree are professional, but really it is a skill. It's a skill that usually should be reinforced in the curriculum. When you start the program, the expectations should be established from the student handbook. And I just wanted to mention also the fact that the steps to professionalism for the fresh eyes, not only just establishing the expectation, but also modeling the behavior as far as what to do, and then linking the professionalism to positive patient outcomes. That's one of the things that I really do not remember them going over in school, But now as an instructor, I really see that it's so important that it is in the curriculum. And I even noticed, I actually look for it at the university I'm at. I teach at Georgia State University, and I did find it in our student handbook about the consequences when there's unprofessional behavior that is displayed. Okay, I have another story. Is it okay if I share it with you? Okay. So, I know, so busy. I try to pick the busiest looking slide because that's what the med-surg floor is like. 10 years later, it's still that way, but that's what it felt like for me as a new graduate. And I remember when I had my first patient that had high acuity, and I'm like, yes, finally, this is the time I'm able to prove that I have the knowledge and the skill as a nurse. Because you already know that in nursing, it's a lot of us having to pay our dues. And it's sad to say, but it's really true. And then even in addition to that, we actually eat our, yes. But for me, during this particular time, I'm happy when I experienced this encounter that I'll share with you next. I am so happy that I did not want to leave the profession, because if I really count back or talk about everything that I experienced as a nurse, and this is not just me, I know you too can relate. It's like, why am I still here? But I know that this is a great profession, and I've actually experienced way more greatness than I've experienced negative encounters. It literally is small, and I'm so happy I didn't emphasize that, because I wouldn't be here today. So back to the first high acuity patient that I had was a stroke patient, and I was being precepted, and I did the routine thing that we always do as far as the assessment, and then of course how we learn in nursing school with the textbook. Make sure they had a bowel movement, make sure you check the vitals, make sure they're eating, and make sure they're able to use their incentive spirometer. And I looked back in the chart and I shared with my preceptor, I said, okay, he's been here for like over a week and I do not see where he's actually had any output. And she was just like, well, people don't have BMs every day. She was like, I want you to stop the care, go back, look in the book, and come back and tell me how often someone, or the regular bowel movement patterns. So I'm like, you want me to do what? I was like, I know that. I passed boards. I know all of that. And so I did what she said to do and came back and let her know. And I said, but I still don't feel like I don't have peace with what's going on with this patient. And I said, can we just at least let the physician know what's going on? And we did. And he's just like, oh, okay, well, he ordered a lactulose and a suppository. And I need to give a little bit more of the presentation of this patient, because then you'll realize how bad it was. So he had a stroke, but he was over 300 pounds. And he had, I believe it was left side weakness, so OT and PT would come in and work with him. So he wasn't ambulating for like the peristalsis or anything. So it was really important. And that was a Thursday. When I came back on a Monday, what do you think they told me? Yeah, and then and on top of that, what do you think happened? And then, oh my gosh, yeah. And what happened after that? And then what happened? I'm like, what, was she there? You were in Albany, Georgia? Oh, okay. I know, we just met today, literally, in the hallway. And then after that, what do you think happened? Yes. And I literally was like, holy crap, people can really die from being in, because it's like you hear about it from the impaction, but when you experience it, it didn't make me feel good. And then I had to think back. I was being ridiculed and mocked by the nurses on the floor because they're like, you new grad, everything's not textbook. But for this person, it really was. It was not a great feeling. And I say that because I have some cards on the table, and I just want you to take this moment or minute to write on those cards a word that describe how you felt the last time, or maybe the first time, or maybe the middle time you were ridiculed for you making a decision as a nurse. So I'll give you about a minute, and then I'll tell you what we'll do next. It's unfortunate that these are the cards that we've been dealt in our profession. Stupid, unintelligent, angry, intimidated. Speaking of angry, I'm going to get off the topic for 1 second. I worked at one place before, and the manager would, because my hair is natural, and sometimes I could blow it straight, but when it was one day, particular day was straight, she told me I looked so much calmer when my hair was straight, and I look angry this way. And when people say that and they don't realize that there's reasons why we do what we do, that's why it's important we really get to know each other and what's going on, as far as even if you see like a birthmark or some type of growth on someone, we have to really be cautious of what we say to each other. Okay, now back to the regular story. Okay, invalued. Someone actually felt secured. That's good. They said something you felt.
My place to explain to them what they don't understand.
I like that. That's absolutely right. Wow, I'll put that there. And someone put, is it okay if I said P-I-S-S-E-D? Okay. And then hurt. And I promise, I'm like, whoa, when I see this, I feel it. Like I felt, do you feel that? When you say, when it's like those are those cards that you're dealt. So how can we really focus on caring for our patients when there's a code or anything, even if it's not a code, even if it's not an emergent situation, even if it's just regular care, if these are the cards that were dealt. Okay, so for the secure one, this was not a part of my original preparation for this speech, but I like the fact that she said this, because as I got older, 10 years later, I realized, wait a minute. I was like, I need to stop wearing other people's issues. It didn't even dawn on me. That's what I was doing, because I was just like, oh, now they're talking about me because I'm pregnant. When pregnancy for me and my husband's actually a gift, when you know people's story, like, okay, after 2 years of trying and then it happens, you're like, woohoo, we don't care that we're broke and we're in school. We're just happy that we can conceive. So we really don't even know, and we point out different things because we're trying to feel superior because we have not had a heart check. So thank you for doing the card thing with me, with the deck. Okay. So what's some other unhealthy behaviors? Eye rolling, gossip, withholding work-related information, abrupt, short responses, humiliation, passive aggressiveness. Oh my gosh, dude. Woo! Let's just take a moment right there. And let's say it one more. Let's say it together. Passive aggressiveness. Yeah, we see that a lot. It's like, okay, if you're angry, tell me if you're angry. I'm okay. Like, no, you're not okay. Is there, did I do anything? Because if you notice someone, because that's the first barometer or way of communicating that someone lets you know that something's wrong is by their body language. But if you take that next step and you ask, okay, did I do something? Did I offend you? And they're like, no. And then they're bitter for the next 15 to 20 years. Even though I haven't been a nurse for 20 years, I should say bitter for the next 5 to 7 years. Then it's one, you're just like, okay. And that's when I learned, stop wearing other people's issues. Because it distracted me off of what? The patient. Yep, that's really what it's about. At the end of the day, when we have a culture that is very healthy, and it's inviting. We're able to provide optimal care. Okay, and the last one, avoiding communication and ignoring. That is just, it's unfortunate that happens, but it does. So what have we been doing over the years? Are we guilty of placing a Band-Aid over a temporary solution for a big problem? And I want to give you an example. Even when a colleague comes to you and say, hey, you know what, the other day, and I'm going to make up a name, hopefully this is no one's name in here, you know, Jill, she just seemed a little short with me, and I really don't know what I did. And then you, as the person receiving the information, you're like, Jill, oh no, she's really cool, everything's fine, this, that, and the other. When we put a Band-Aid on it, yes, I understand that Jill may not be disrespectful to you, but if they're disrespectful to another colleague, what can we do having a good relationship with Jill that could actually create a healthy work environment for a colleague? Yeah. Be like, I like you. Let's all come together and have a roundtable discussion about what's going on, because I know that Jill has a great heart if you get to know her, and I know that you have a great heart, and it's unfortunate that two people are so great that are not getting along. Sometimes it's just simple miscommunication. It really is, and that's why it's so important that we acknowledge it. So who's to blame? Is it you? Or I should say, is it us? Is it your manager? Is it the staff? Because we all play a vital role in caring for each other. Myth or fact? Job dissatisfaction, decreased work morale, low productivity are just a few outcomes of unhealthy work environment. That is a fact. That is correct. Even more, that with professionalism, how many of you guys are aware that professionalism or the way it's viewed is different with different cultures? Yes. Okay. So for those of you who know me, you probably know what I'm going to say next as far as the tardiness. I happen to be connected to a group of people that I love greatly, but we're always late. And then my close friend, she's from another country, that they're always late too. So we get along very well, but it's not good for the work environment when it comes to nursing. How many of you were just ready to go home and it was an hour later and the person didn't come to relieve you? Okay, and I just want to know, what was the longest you had to wait for someone to relieve you who's typically late? Not someone who an emergency happened and it was out of their control. 30 minutes? Oh, wow, they're nice. With me, 5 hours. Was it 5? It was 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Oh, no, the supervisor, what did they? Because they wouldn't want me there that much time.
And it's so funny.
Especially hours overnight, so by the day shift come,
Absolutely.
they said, you don't want me past, you know, up until the 7, you don't want me at 11.
That is correct. That is correct.
I've been there since 7.
So that, it did not feel good because I felt like, and that was the song that I had at the beginning I do apologize it didn't play. I felt like she did not respect my time or respect me as a person, because at the end of the day, you can be in whatever role that you are. People just want to be acknowledged and they want to be respected. Myth or fact? It is healthy for nurses to set boundaries. It is. It is, especially when you work in a high-stress environment. I had worked at a local jail, and it was intense. It was very intense, and the morale was low. So it made it even more stressful. And unfortunately, I left after working for 2 years. Did I think it was a bad place to really work as far as the patients that I was interacting with? Absolutely not. But it was too volatile for me. And one of the things that the literature mentioned is that it does not matter how nice a nurse is and how competent that nurse is. When it comes to an environment that is just too stressful, she will leave. And you are probably, as I mentioned before, these are things that I'm just reinforcing that you already know, that it's connected to the turnovers. So that's why it's important that you establish healthy boundaries, and that includes changing. And we don't want that to happen because it costs our employers a lot more money to hire new staff. Then you have to train again. And then in addition to that, they have to get acclimated to the culture, because the culture is different for every institution or hospital or clinic, I should say. And how many of you actually sign up to work in a high stress environment?
I did.
Yeah, like ER.
I did.
You did, okay. Because one of the things that I noticed, and as I mentioned before, I worked at a jail, but ER, have you heard lately what's going on with a lot of the ERs throughout the nation? With the nurses being attacked? Okay.
That's been going on.
Yeah. So when you get a chance after this talk, please Google and then go under news and put like nurse and violence, and it will be threads of, can you believe that? Because they know, these patients know that once we implemented the patient satisfaction and all the they feel like it is really the ticket to do and treat us however they want, when you can't do that because we're caring for you. And that's why I try to recruit people to work at the jail or prisons, because they have handcuffs and it's less likely that they are going to attack you. And you have 2 officers with you, because I literally, can you imagine my family when I'm like, I'm going to work at the jail? They're, oh, be careful. And I mean, it was one of those things like, I'm not even going to share with them any of the stories that go on there because they're really going to panic. But I felt safer working at the jail than I did Minute Clinic. No, I'm serious. Minute Clinic is closed. You only have that little button to push. And everyone's not stable. And working in corrections, I learned that there are a lot of unstable people walking around. They just haven't been caught yet. Okay. Myth or fact? One approach to achieving healthy outcomes for patients is creating a work culture that incorporates respect and collaboration. That is a fact. So sustaining this type of environment with mutual respect and collaboration is really essential for optimal health outcomes for the patient and for us. Because one thing I'm learning now is that there's more nurses that actually die of heart attacks at the hospital, at work? Okay. So I thought usually people wait until Monday, but I guess it can happen anytime. So of course, this approach involves setting boundaries, as we mentioned earlier. So all of this that we discussed, it really makes you wonder, as far as the nursing profession, are we empty or full with morale? It almost makes me think about with the cup, is it half empty or half full? What do you think as far as that, as far as morale go? Now that there's more research, there's more literature, believe it or not, there's a lot of literature now that is out on it, and there's a few experts. I mentioned Shepard and Embry. Do you feel like we are empty or full when it comes to morale?
Depends on the environment, where you're at, and it depends on the environment, and also this stage of growth where people are
In their own
individually
lives,
and in their individual lives also too. Because the perspective how you look at it is very different depending on what type of person are you and where you're at with your confidence and how you feel with yourself.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Now imagine a world where incivility did not exist. We wish it was like that, and we probably call it heaven. But I will tell you this, there are a lot of great places that are out there as far as hospitals. I've been doing clinicals with my students at Piedmont, Atlanta, and I was just so amazed at how the environment, how inviting they were with the students. And it was different from the other facility that I refuse to name because I'm not saying anything positive about it. And, you know, and for purposes, I don't want to do that. But let's talk about Piedmont, Atlanta. It's been amazing. It really has. So there was something that I picked up when I worked at United Health Group. That place was amazing. I worked there for about 3 years. And the thing that I love the most is that they incorporated this positive reinforcement, and they really, it was part of the culture. And immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life? I embraced it. And it was, are you familiar with Ken Blanchard? He's an author. He wrote Well Done. He also has a book along with Spencer Johnson called Who Moved My Cheese. Please read that when you get a chance. It's a great book about change, adapting to change. And with the Well Done, they would, at United Healthcare, they gave everyone, the staff, the administration, these, it was like cutouts with, and it would say well done to and from, and then you would say what the person did. So like Camille, my colleague back there, I would give her a well done for helping me with this presentation, impromptu, by passing out the cards and the permanent markers. So I would say, thank you, well done with helping me with my presentation. Because remember, at the end of the day, it's all a team thing. Like, I cannot do this by myself. There's other people who help me be here today and share this with you. So the manager would also do that too if we did well on the phone, because it was telephonic case management. She said, I heard your call, pardon me, I'm giving you an example. I heard your call, and I really like the fact that you took time out, even though you wanted to, because you know you're focused on checking off, doing your check off, but she acknowledged how it took the time to actually listen to the patient. She said that's really good because that's therapeutic. That's part of the care that we want to give in the customer service. And then I would give the manager a well done, and you get my picture. It was like we were constantly acknowledging, and it seemed little, but it was significant. And I adapted this at Piedmont and the other place that I do clinicals, where at the end of the day, I have my students, I printed out some well done cards, and in the back it says a heart from each other. And it's funny because I asked my student, do you think it's corny? He's like, no, Dr. Little, I really like it. He's like, because I feel like the nurses are happy to see us the next time we come because they know that it's positive. So the nurse, I would give it to the charge nurse, and this week I gave her one that says, well done, thank you for helping me log on to the Pyxis, because I was there for 3 weeks, and you know, sometimes it takes a minute. And I was just grateful. Instead of complaining, why did it take them so long to log me out? It's pointless. It's putting energy in the wrong direction. And I'm just sharing that with you because for those of you who think it is impossible to have a healthy work environment, I hope that from this presentation that you're able to pull that it exists based on what your responses of your peers today and the examples that I have given you. And what are some steps to a healthy work environment? Well, the first one is the Michael Jackson, starting with the man in the mirror. So we model the healthy behaviors. And I have to mention, we also model the behavior when we're wrong, that we go back and apologize. Because sometimes people think modeling the behavior is just saying, oh, thank you for opening the door. Oh, I'm so happy that you helped me with this patient. Sometimes it's really like, I apologize. I snapped on you. I have some things going on, and it's not you, it's really me. Another thing is introducing new team members and supporting them in their roles. I've worked at a facility where I was the nurse manager, which when I think back now, I was just like, I so wasn't ready for that. But because one of the things with the nursing culture now in 2018, and it will be like that for some more years, it's multi-generational. It's we have as far as like the cultural, people with various backgrounds, and also there's just a lot of diversity in nursing. And it's so important that when we have new staff and they have an authoritative role, that we take the time, introduce them to the team, and support them and say that this is Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. She will be the nurse manager, and we are here to support her in her new role as well as you. But never do it where it seems like you're siding. I felt like they were siding so much with the staff, and I felt like I did not have the support. And I left that job, and as we mentioned earlier, turnover. I didn't stay. I mean, that was the shortest time. My mom's like, whoa, were you even there for a year? I said, no, it was 7 months. So, and a lot of people ask, why is it the new grads or the millennials, or why they don't stay long? They don't stay. But what are we doing to invite them and let them know that we appreciate them? In addition to that, because my mother is also a nurse and she's in her 60s, what are we doing also for those who are the older nurses? I'm trying to say it the most diplomatic way. I'll just say what it is. She's in her 60s, so you know she's older. But how do we show appreciation? Seasoned, thank you. Our seasoned nurses, because they really are, they have, a lot of people, they want to toss them aside and think they're antiquated. They're not. They've been doing this for a long time, and they have an expertise we need to be able to appreciate to keep nursing alive. Ooh, I feel like I'm preaching. Okay. All right. Address unhealthy situations to resolve them quickly and effectively. Encourage professional and academic growth. Has anyone in here experienced academic growth or a promotion, and it's like someone on the floor that you were cool with, or someone in the clinic that you were cool with? And I'm using that colloquialism because for the obvious, I'm very relaxed with you. So they felt very relaxed. That's what I'll say instead of cool. So they were really relaxed with you, and all of a sudden there's a problem. There's a problem that now you have been promoted to the team lead, or promoted to the charge nurse, or promoted to a manager, promoted to a CEO, promoted to whatever position it is. But we really have to learn how to celebrate the wins, because it really makes us all look good. And back in the 80s, or was it the 90s? But anyhow, there's this shampoo, Vidal Sassoon, and they used to have this commercial, and it would say, if you don't look good, we don't look good. That is how I think. When I think heart for each other, that is literally what I'm thinking. That is so important for us to celebrate wins. And also recognize and reward good behaviors. It's important to do that. There's this misconception like, well, that's their part of their job responsibility role. They should be doing that anyways. How about, I am so grateful that you're still here 10 years later when we've had a lot of turnovers. How about that? Just a thought. Be open to reconciliation with your colleagues. That's really important. Ignores doctor, nurse. So and then that's when Samantha actually says you can ask him instead of just sharing what the information is because she's in the recovery. That's the actual setting. And so the next patient comes, right before the next patient, Dr. Nurse speaks with the staff member and says, hey, I noticed that she kind of has a little attitude or short. And she's like, oh, yes, she is rude. Just ignore it. And Dr. Nurse is like, how can I ignore it? Because I have to interact with her all the time. And that's when the next patient comes in and Dr. Nurse thinks to do it at a different approach. Dr. Nurse says, hey, Mrs. Jones, how are you doing? You are in good hands. Samantha is part of the team and is going to take care of you. And then when it was time for her to get the vitals, Samantha shared the vitals with her. And the reason why, pardon me, I was making sure I didn't go over the time. The reason why this is important is because this is an approach that you can have to someone who displays behaviors that they seem like they're a little rude and insensitive. Because think about it, all of this is going on in front of the patient. And of course, I have to tell you, this is an example of what I've experienced working in a setting. And that's the approach that I took. I figured, okay, I'm going to go back out there. I felt like I was in the NFL. I'll go back out there and give it all that I have. And I figured, wait a minute, let me just acknowledge Samantha as a part of the team so she doesn't feel like I am Dr. Nurse and she's here. I wanted her to feel like she was alongside with me. And when I did that, I noticed, and that's what worked for this person. It may not work for everyone, but I was happy that it worked for this person. And even more, this individual, I noticed that she was pregnant, and I asked her, I said, where are you registered? I took an extra step further, and I sent her a gift. And when she came back after her maternal leave, she has just been, hey, how are you, Patrice? And I'm just so excited because what happened is I showed her what the culture is like. So we talked about that already as far as nursing in diversity. And basically, you can try it now without the parachute, starting with yourself. And for those of you who are in academia, be an example by establishing partnerships with the charge nurse and the care team to model how the students, how it should be done in nursing. For those of you in the hospital, when there's downtime and you see another staff that is overwhelmed, assist that person. And for those of you who are in the clinic, try the well dones because it's a more intimate setting. And these are my references. And please stay connected with me if you have any other questions. And you have a good day.